On today's podcast, we're talking about the rise, fall, and then the triumphant return of the company Peloton, and looking at their story from the outside to see what leadership and culture lessons might we learn for how we approach our own initiatives. Stay tuned and I'll explain. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason and welcome back to the Thermostat podcast, wherever you are, however you're coming to the podcast today. So glad you are here. Welcome in. We're in season 10, well over 320 or something like that episodes at this point. So glad you're here. It continues to grow and spread. If you're new to the podcast, welcome in. Hope you'll go back, scroll through all of those episodes. There's so many great topics that I think will resonate with you. Great conversations I've had with thought leaders and wonderful people, friends of mine from all over. And I think it'll resonate with you. If you just want to Google my name, Jason Barger, and topics around leadership, culture, mindset that you're looking for, you're going to find something that hopefully resonates with you, and hope you do that and really take advantage of the great catalog of episodes that we already have. And we're going to continue to keep creating them. So for those of you that have been with us for some time now, I'm so glad this continues to add value to your life and your work. And I hope you'll continue to tune in to get these kind of thoughts. And my commitment to you as always is every time I record one of these, I think about, I want to be, creating an opportunity for you to step back, hopefully have some good oxygen breathed into you, and to help you think about that temperature that you're setting in your life and your work. And so that's my commitment, and that's what I hope for today's episode and every episode. Before I dive into today's episode, if you'll do me the quick favor, if you haven't liked the podcast or subscribed to the podcast, or if you'd rate the podcast 5 stars, of course, leave an authentic review in your own words. Those are all the ways in which the algorithms, it really helps people find the podcast and it spreads to more and more people. So that really helps. Obviously, every time you share the podcast, whether that's with colleagues or friends, you're like, hey, there's an episode that resonates with you. Let's listen to it and talk about it. Or if you share it on social media, those are all the ways in which this helps reach more people and share positive messages in the world. And that's the entire point. So thanks to everybody that helps amplify these messages. Thank you. I still sometimes have flashbacks to the global pandemic and the times surrounding the fearful times around COVID-19. Obviously, I think about the horrible elements of those times of lives lost and families and communities really suffering, and how scary that time was for so many people. I also have very vivid memories that jump into my head, fortunately, of, every once in a while, of the silly things that we did as a family, or I heard about from friends and neighbors and people near and far as they dealt with the isolation of being quarantined. All of us, quarantined and isolated in our own homes to stay away from people during this scary, ambiguous, weird time that we were all experiencing. And then all these things that we did to kind of fill time and or entertain ourselves or to just keep ourselves sane. And so for myself personally, I think about the Japanese steakhouse night that I created for my kids in our house, where I tried to simulate going out to a fun hibachi restaurant right at our countertop around the island in our kitchen on an electric stovetop griddle. And it was such a fun night, and I dressed up like a chef, and I tried to do the little Japanese steakhouse thing with the knives and created this little hibachi dinner. And it was just a fun memory that we had as a family because we were able, and we fortunately took the time to do something like that while we had all this time that we didn't think we'd have. I think about the family dunk contest that we had outside on our trampoline in our backyard, where we filmed each person in our family doing a slow motion, basketball dunk on a miniature hoop jumping off of a trampoline and these hilarious videos. My wife's slow motion 360-degree dunk on video. These things are priceless. I think about all the family games, the movies, the Zoom calls with friends. Such a strange and interesting and memorable time that I think will stay with us for so long. I also think about all the people, all of us that were trying to stay healthy, to work out and exercise our bodies while we were trapped in our own homes. This is where the story of the company Peloton enters this episode. I've read up on their story and, some alleged elements of their rise and their fall as a company and then their rebirth. And so on today's podcast, we're talking about the rise, fall, and then the triumphant return of the company Peloton, and looking at their story from the outside to see what leadership and culture lessons might we learn for how we approach our own initiatives. Stay tuned and I'll explain. But let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. So let me take us back into remembering during that time of the pandemic and this company Peloton, which, I was familiar with, but certainly during the pandemic, they became really well known because during the pandemic, as a company, and again, I've tried to study this and find sources outside, from a distance to look at the company, but their revenue grew from $915 million in 2019 to during the pandemic, a giant jump up to $4 billion in revenue in 2021. Obviously, everybody was trapped in their own homes. They couldn't go anywhere. We were quarantined. And so people were buying up these bikes and diving into these membership programs with Peloton so they could exercise and while they were in their own homes. And so the company had this meteoric rise from 2019 to 2021, where they more than quadrupled in size during that time. And then what do you think happened? Well, the world reopened and everybody left their homes, went back to work, went back to gyms, and all of a sudden the stock price crashes by a huge percentage. And in many of the bikes that people had, they were selling them online at about 80% discounts. By 2023, just 2 years after that $4 billion rise in 2021, subscribers were down 16% year over year each of those years, and the company was hemorrhaging about $187 million every quarter, or so the story goes. And during this time of this just giant rise and then this quick fall, obviously, they had some changes in their leadership across the company and entered the new CEO, Barry McCarthy, who was the former CFO at Netflix and Spotify. And he brought in a new mindset, and he knew part of the challenge was to challenge the company to see things differently. And right away, he talked to them about he didn't see their product as bikes. He saw their company was about human behavior. And he brought this new mindset in to say, we can't see our product as a bike. We've got to look at it from a human behavior perspective. their company, as you start to look at the story, their company didn't have the massive fall because their product was broken or wasn't great anymore. The bikes were still the same bikes they were. Their fall was certainly circumstantial coming out of the pandemic. And looking at it from the outside, and what has now been reported since, is that the company also started to lose its way, and the focus was on the product being their bikes. Well, McCarthy challenged them otherwise. He challenged their mindset to look at their company and to look at their product differently. Their product was not the bike. The product actually were the instructors. The relationships and connections that were people riding the bikes were building with those instructors that showed up on their screens and that they followed on social media, and then the community of riders that was being built by everybody that's connected and doing the same ride together. And all of a sudden they started to see that their product really wasn't about the bike. It was about this connection to human connection, to the relationship between the instructors and the community of all the riders. And so on a recent pod episode, just recently, I was talking about the recent Harvard Leadership Development Study that calls for us to create change-seeking organizational cultures. I hope you'll go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. But every leader, team, and organization has the opportunity to seek change and stay focused on what their true product or service is. And so when I think about this lessons of leadership and culture from Peloton is to step back and to realize how easy it is in so many of our personal initiatives, but in our own lives and our own relationships, in our own cultures, is to lose sight of what is our actual product or service. And sometimes we can, whatever the equivalent is for you, but you can start to think that your product is the bike, when actually the product and the service you're providing is really about human behavior, is about connection, is about relationship, is about community. And so for all of us to step back and to learn lessons from this example, to say, what is that we're truly creating? What's the secret sauce to our product, to our service, to our culture? And oftentimes it comes back to that human connection, people feeling cared for and a part of something bigger than themselves. And then, oh, by the way, what are the tools like a bike that help us get there? I also, on the last pod, I reminded us about the 6A process of leading change, because leading the change we want doesn't happen overnight. We have to seek it, just as the Harvard, study was telling us. We got to seek it, but we also have to follow through with the actions to stimulate the progress we want and to focus on the change we want to create. And so I went back through just to remind us of those 6 A's. And I won't go into as much detail on this episode that I did last. Again, I hope you go back and listen to that Harvard change-seeking episode. But the 6 A's: assess, align, aspire, articulate, act, and anchor. As change seekers, we all have the opportunity to go through that process of change and to seek the change we want, but we have to remember what our actual product, service, and mission is, and Peloton becomes a great example of losing that and coming back to and redefining that vision and that mission. And then what happened is, once they rewired for this, within the next 2 quarters after these changes, revenue was back up by 20% and the company started to climb back again. So I use that as an example to think about making sure our focus, where we look is where we go. What is it we're giving our focus and our attention to? So as always, let me leave you with some questions to ponder for this episode. What is the product, service, or mission at the center of your focus? Where have you gotten off track and lost sight of the true purpose? In what ways could you seek change next to lead your people into the future? I hope today's episode got you thinking in some good ways. I hope it breathed some good oxygen into you, got you thinking, and helps you think about that temperature that you're trying to set in your life and your work. If we can be more helpful to you in the development of your people, your culture, be a support to your team and organization, track us down through the jasonvbarger.com website, jasonvbarger.com, or you can email us info@jasonvbarger.com. I hope you'll continue to tune in. I hope you'll, if you haven't already, subscribed, hit the like button, rate the podcast 5-star, leave an authentic review, and share the podcast. Whatever episodes resonate with you, share them with the people around you, talk about them, share them on social media, whatever you can to help amplify those messages so that it connects to what you're trying to accomplish with your people and your culture. And lastly, I'll just remind us all to step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.